Good evening. It is Wednesday, it is the 31st of July, and this is going to be an update on the weather situation across the UK with respect to thunderstorms potentially developing overnight and into Thursday. We'll also briefly touch on the storms firing across northern France this evening in what is a little bit more active across northern France than it is across southern Britain. Hopefully the sound is a bit better on this video than it was on the first one, so we will get going and see how things go. So this is the satellite image as we end the day. You can see mostly clear skies across England and Wales, some cloud across Scotland and Northern Ireland associated with a residual front across the north and the west. But the main focus, as you can see, is the thunderstorms across France. And someone earlier today asked me why we're getting thunderstorms over northern France, but we're not getting them over the southeast of England. Well, the answer to that is that there is a much stronger forcing mechanism for those thunderstorms to form over northern France. The air is a little bit moister, and there is also more vorticity or spin in the atmosphere to get those thunderstorms going through the afternoon. There's some pretty big cape available actually. If you look at the Paris 11 o'clock ascent, you can see some pretty good cape has gone up there with very little inhibition, 2,656 joules per kilogram of cape, and the tops would go all the way up to about 45,000 feet. So quite interesting for some of the aircraft perhaps coming into Charles de Gaulle and Orly airports through the evening. But so yeah, pretty active thunderstorm situation there. And if we look at the observations or the wind observations across France this afternoon, you can see you have a general south to southwesterly wind coming in there across Brittany up towards Paris, and then you have the northeasterly winds coming down from the English Channel. So there's a very well marked convergence line that developed really inland across northern France, roughly from Abbeville down through towards Rennes through the afternoon, and that is going to propagate southeastwards as we go through the evening. Some pretty big thunderstorms already having formed, and the lightning network is already picking out lots of thunderstorms that are fired across northern France. They've seemingly died down just a little bit at the moment, but I think the further thunderstorms will get going, and they will move down probably to affect the Paris area as well as we go through the evening. So pretty big thunderstorms there. And it has actually been very active across much of the Swiss Alps in particular through the afternoon. Lots of thunderstorms going on down across Switzerland and Austria, Western Austria as well. And on the GFS, if we look at the ECMWF through this is the 06E run this morning, you can see rather benign conditions with the upper ridge still acting on the weather across parts of southeast England. There was some elevated instability this morning in the English Channel, and that there was the risk on some earlier models that would move into the southeast of England, but the forcing, the dynamical forcing is pretty meager today. There's very little convergence, there's very little upward motion of the air. You've got a general ridge conditions in the mid-troposphere, so there's very little uplift to get those thunderstorms or even any cloud convection developing. If you look out the window, you'll probably see some bits of alto cumulus, but that's about it in terms of upward rising motion. So it's pretty benign across the southeast of England, southern England in particular. But if you look down across France, you've got more of this orange colour on the graphic here, and that's indicative of more vorticity. And there's slightly more troughing, which is the residual. If you remember a couple of days ago on the video, we talked about that red bullet on the water vapour image that was down across western Portugal. The remnants of that is now across France, and that's why there is more spin, there's more ascending air, there's more vertical motion of the air upwards, and that's why you've got those thunderstorms forming today over France, whereas we don't have them over southern Britain. We were talking about whether it would move into the southeast of England. In the end, much of the vorticity moved into much of France. So that's where they've got the thunderstorm activity there. So the heat has been with us again today. We've seen temperatures up to around 30 or 31 degrees Celsius, and it's been a pretty warm day. But things are on the change now. If we run through the ECMWF mid-level charts through this evening, and we go into the early morning period, you can see that by tomorrow morning at 060 we've the ridge that we were looking at is now over Denmark and Germany, and we've got more troughing, more kink in those in the mid-level flow coming in towards western parts of the UK. And as you get a trough coming in that looks like that on the graphic, you will get ascending air in the forward part of the trough. So you can see more orange, yellow and orange starting to show up there across the West Country and Wales. And what we're likely to see is we're going to see some precipitation developing. There's a weak cold front that's going to come in from the west, and we could see that on the imagery earlier on. You can see it here. This front is going to move eastwards, but it's going to reactivate as it comes eastwards, because the troughing that's associated with it sharpens just a little bit overnight. So we'll find outbreaks of rain developing across parts of Wales, northern England, into parts of northeast England as we go through the night. Now the UKV model is well, this was the 0900. It's quite bullish on this. If you go back here, this is we can see it breaking out here, 04, 0600. This is, I think, rather extreme in what it is. I don't expect to see this kind of precipitation breaking out. The other models are generally far less enthusiastic about such widespread outbreaks, and indeed, I don't know whether this is updated. Let's have a look. We see if the 12 room run. So we'll see if it's. Yeah, so it's toned down the precipitation just a little bit. I haven't actually seen that one until I've just run it. So that's toned it down a bit. I still think that's probably a bit excessive with regards to the precipitation breaking out. But it gives you the general idea that we are likely to see some outbreaks of showery rain developing across northern England into Scotland. And there could be some thunder in there as well, if that was to prove to be reliable. As I said, I think it's probably a bit on the excessive side. If we look at the Arome forecast, you can see it breaks out. It has more frontal rain coming in across Ireland. It does break out something over the Pennines and northeast England, but again, not to the extreme nature that we're seeing on the UKV. So I think probably that's a compromise to expect outbreaks of showery rain, possibly some quite sharp bursts, develop over parts of northern England into northeast England through the end of the night. So that will leave us, and that will start us through to tomorrow, and we are likely to see, if we go back here, if we push it forward a little bit further, we get that trough coming in across England and Wales, so that by tomorrow, versus compared to today, we've got troughing across England and Wales in the mid levels, in the 500 millibar level. So we've got more potential for the air to be rising. We've got more potential for clouds to be developing, and we've got more potential for some. We've got the residual warm air still. So if we look at the European 850 millibar wet bulb potential temperature, and we look at tomorrow lunchtime, we can see that we've still got residual, the very warm moist humid areas over the continent, but we've still got 16 to 18 degrees Celsius wet bulb potential temperature across central southern England all the way up through towards the Midlands. And tomorrow, unlike today, we are likely to have something more in the way of a convergence zone. So I think what we will see is the risk of some quite heavy showers and some thunderstorms developing through the day. Now, where is that convergence zone going to be? That's probably the biggest question. So if we look at the Arome wind field as we go through tomorrow, you can see we start the day with easterly winds across East Anglia down to the southeast, and we've got westerly winds, or west-northwesterly winds, coming in across Devon and Cornwall into Wales as well, and feeding into the Cheshire, through the Cheshire Gap down towards the Midlands. So we've got the beginnings of a convergence zone. Now, whether that easterly wind there is slightly more is able to maintain further west. The overall flow is going to be from west to east. So these westerly winds over Ireland and the Celtic Sea are going to win. There is no doubt about that. The question is, where is this convergence zone going to be through the day when we got daytime heating beginning to occur? So the idea is that we are going to have, as we get through to 10, 11 o'clock, we start to see that developing across central southern England. So anywhere really from Dorset, Hampshire, into West Sussex, up through towards the M4 corridor, up towards the Midlands area, where we see these west or northwesterly winds meeting these easterly winds. We are going to force the air up. Now, once you force that surface wind, you mix the atmosphere up, you're forcing it up, and you're going to get clouds developing, and you're going to then be able to tap into that warm 850 millibar wet bulb, and you're going to be able to tap into the ascending air, the spinning air further up in the troposphere. So you're going to get showers and thunderstorms developing as we go through tomorrow. The environment is much better than it was today, and we can see that by the fact that the model, as we go through tomorrow, if this is the arome, it breaks out showers and thunderstorms as we go through from kind of around midday or lunchtime onwards through the afternoon. It dies them out in the evening. They may probably is a little bit quick, but there is the potential for some quite heavy showers and thunderstorms developing along that convergence zone. I think the UKV has a similar idea, but I think it's a bit broad brush. It has a convergent. It has one near the south coast. It has another one in the northwest. It's rather too scattergun in general for my preference. I prefer to see. I think the arome probably produces a more realistic solution. And whilst the global models are generally too crude to pick up, the resolution is too crude to pick up too much in the way of this detail. The general idea of a convergence zone developing through the Midlands down to central southern England and then propagating eastwards towards eastern parts of England, London and the southeast through the afternoon, it's probably got general legs in it, and probably is the consensus. Some of those showers and thunderstorms are likely to be quite heavy, and I think there will be some quite intense thunderstorms forming, quite slow moving as well, so there could well be some issues in one or two places with short-term flooding from those thunderstorms. So it is quite the potential for some interesting weather in one or two places tomorrow. Many places will probably stay dry. In fact, more places will stay dry probably than get wet. But some of those showers are going to be quite heavy and slow moving as well, with as I said, some pretty intense rain rates coming in there as well. And the model is not particularly keen on seeing any particular gustiness with those thunderstorms, but there is a risk there of some isolated 40-mile-an-hour gusts potentially in some of those thundery showers, but they're not. They don't look to be. There isn't a lot of kinematics or a lot of wind energy in the upper atmosphere, so they're not likely to become severe thunderstorms in that thinking. But they could produce quite a lot of rain in a short period of time as we go through the end of the day. It's still going to be a very warm day. It's still going to be pretty hot, though that the cooler air is going to be moving eastwards as we go through the next 3 hours. And tomorrow probably the last of the really warm days, but still going to be lingering on in the southeast. And if we were to look further ahead, it does look unfortunately like the Atlantic jet is going to roar back into life as we go through next week. If I look at the right chart, if we look at the North Atlantic jet as we go through next week, you will see as the sequence runs that the jet stream becomes quite zonal again, stretching from the Canadian-US border over Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and towards the British Isles. Is not what we want to see really for summer weather. I mean, you look at that jet. You're feeding in very warm air from the central and the southwestern United States, and you're mixing it with cold air directly from Hudson Bay, and the result of that is a very strong jet stream there. What the GFS is suggesting by the time we get through to the 11th of August, with a jet core somewhere around 170 knots coming towards Ireland, with some pretty intense, if that were to verify, the potential for some quite strong Atlantic low pressure centers to come in. That is not a good chart at any time of the year, unless you like Atlantic zonal weather. But it's really not what you want to see in August. So it does look, unfortunately, like we are going to see a return to that more unsettled weather as we go through the period into next week, and I don't think it is looking too good at all longer term for August. But anyway, that's the weather for now, and hope you enjoyed the video.